Oh, you know what? I was looking at it upside down. Well, sometimes that helps.
Welcome to Book Club!
Except instead of books, it's games.
Oh, and instead of a club, there's us two.
But the rest of the idea is 100% the same.
As every fortnight, we play one game solidly,
Then come here to talk about it.
and we want you to do the same.
All the games are retro.
Most of them are Sega,
Some of them we've never played.
or, we've just forgotten we've played them.
Because we're old.
Because we're old! Because we're old.
Because we're old.
The Book Club has one central theme.
We play retro games for their quality.
Games that deserve to still be played.
There are some bonus old man memories to be had. But you don't need nostalgia if the game is awesome.
We're going to prove it.
In the Book Club.
Well, hello and welcome to Book Club for the 7th episode. 7th heaven. We made it.
Oh yeah.
I don't know why I said we made it as if that was the target and we're going to stop. Don't worry, we will carry on.
That's the end of it. We're wrapping it up.
I am Bedgel and this is Dibs. Hello, good
Dibs
sir.
ahoy.
Dibs ahoy.
Hello, sir. How do you do? How's it going?
Oh, I like this posh intro. Top of the morning.
You like
cheer.
that, huh?
Yeah, fantastic. Chippity dee. That's not even a phrase. I just made that up. It's a book club
It's a good
special.
one, though. Whatever, roll with it.
Have you been well? Have you been playing plenty of games? Have you been working? Have you been on holiday? What have you been doing? We haven't spoken much.
I haven't been on holiday. Well, yeah, I've been playing the games that we've been aiming for these shows, and I've been making videos like an absolute fiend.
That's right.
So,
Game of
lots
Fridges is
shorts.
working you like a dog. Play those games.
Yeah. It's, there are many shorts that I'm kind of working on, trying to have like backup, for multiple weeks in advance and stuff like that. But yeah, it's all good though. I'm enjoying it. It's good fun. I like doing this. So.
I don't feel like the opportunity for a plug can pass us by because the shorts that you mentioned are available on the channel right now, packed full of mega gaming goodness. So go check those
mega
out.
Games, yep.
Very nice.
Yeah, go butchers.
I have been away on my travels, and so I did this week's game based on the Ambernick, the little handheld emulator, and I've got to say it struggled a little bit. We had a little bit of glitching.
Oh, did it?
We had some big old monsters that were kind of coming in and out of shot. It just added an extra layer of challenge when you can't see what you're shooting at. So
okay,
it may have been heat.
Yeah.
I was in France. It was très chaud. There you go. Extra
there
language.
you go.
A little bit of something for the
very
French
nice.
readers, viewers.
Yeah.
So, I know.
Enjoy, everyone.
Oh la la. Well, I have very much enjoyed this one, and I cannot wait any much longer for us to get into it. So, do you want to do the big reveal? What are we working on, playing, talking about this week?
Okie dokie, it's a big one. So it's the 1995 release Team Andromeda game, the legendary Panzer Dragoon, which is it's a real big one. So I'm looking forward to talking about this.
I do feel like we needed to put like a cheer sound effect in after you said it, and because I don't have one, I just did it myself and really let everyone down.
Yeah, get a soundboard or something.
I do have one of those Steam Deck things, that you can press the buttons on. But I feel like I'm a major faffer, and so if I started to introduce that into the podcast...
don't say that about yourself. That's not true. Yeah, you are. You're real bad.
The great thing about doing this as a YouTube video rather than doing it on Twitch or a live stream is the amount of editing I can do to get rid of all my faffing. Because if it looks even vaguely cogent as a viewing experience, it's because I've heavily cut out the faffing.
Right.
But it is a big game, a massive game. And one of the reasons it was such a big game is because it was so early on. It was so built into the kind of early DNA of the system. It was such a big part of the early lineup. So, is that we obviously PAL users. What was your experience of it? Was it early for you?
Well, it was early in a way, because basically America, so the Saturn launched there, I believe it was May, I might be wrong, but it was kind of around there. So
May 11th?
we had the Oh, okay, good one. Yep. So we didn't get it here, the Saturn that is, till July 8th. And
Grr.
so basically, while America had it on their launch day, we didn't have it until August. However, what we did have was this, which is a little demo disc that I have of Panzer Dragoon. I'll show you it in more detail in 1 second. But like basically, so I got the Saturn on launch day because I'm such a diehard Sega fan. So 400 big ones later, and I'm going through the box, and there's this inside of it. So
A little. It's kind of like a guarantee
Little
card,
thingy.
isn't it? And then, but it has
some
a.
kind of thing. But basically, what it is it has forms. I've cut out the English one because I did send it off. But the form, this is the German one, so this is the form you fill out, cut it out, send it off to them, and they basically send you. Oh, someone's dinging me. Basically, they send you this demo disc. So this is pretty cool. If you see the Daytona car right on the front,
Yeah, I remember
It's,
it because
uh,
of
it's
that.
ca-
That was that's
yeah.
the thing that really stood out.
and you get that little video card thing on the back there, just all showing off the good stuff of the Saturn. And there's a little blurb about Panzer Dragoon getting the demo.
Nice,
And here is the disc. So
looking pristine.
looking, oh yeah, the disc is the box is a little dog-eared actually.
that
'cause it
actually-
fell off the back of my shelf one time. I got a bit
I
crunch.
thought you were going to say it fell off the back of a lorry. I was going to say, is that the same as the main disc, but it's completely different, isn't it? Because the main disc is black.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
but
does.
basically, yeah.
Yeah.
I sent off that. It's got like a level on it, so you can experience the joys of Panzer Dragoon while we waited for the August release, basically.
Oh.
Because I didn't get it like right away because of basically, I was so hyped for the Saturn because of the arcades, basically. So the
Yeah.
second the Saturn was available, it was Virtua Fighter, Daytona. They were the ones I was after, and I think
Yeah,
there was only
yeah.
4 games anyway. I might be wrong, but I remember like, was it Victory Goal and Clockwork Knight may have been one of the other ones. I thought it was only 4 games that came out, like, but yeah, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, Clockwork Knight was
yeah.
definitely in the mix because I mean, I even remember one of the interviews I read in prepping for this was the dev for Panzer Dragoon saying he was under a lot of pressure to try and get it ready for launch, which he didn't manage.
Yeah,
and almost
yeah,
with
they
a,
missed the
almost with
Japanese launch, yeah.
a bit of tang on in his voice. He's like, but Clockwork Knight was ready. He sort of just sounds quite
okay.
bitter.
Right.
Anyway, but it's weird. We were saying before we both remember it. So you remember playing
Yeah.
it. You've obviously come back to it now, and even the later levels. So not just the demo disc version, which we think was just the first level. Actually, can't remember, but certainly wouldn't have been the whole game. But we remembered it, and yet you didn't own it. I didn't own it.
No,
We're not sure that
my friend
Chris or
Lars
Lance
didn't
owned
own it.
it.
Yeah, well,
So-
I mean, like the thing is, it's like the Saturn was not widespread among people. Like, I mean,
No.
outside of our group, I actually don't think I ever knew another Saturn owner. Actually, now I set my mind to it, but
I mean, could
yeah,
it have been
so
a
it wasn't
rental?
like-
Do you think did it ever sneak into our lives via Blockbuster?
I
or
don't know,
something?
maybe Chris rented it. I don't know.
You
I
did
mean,
like to
I would
rent.
think if anyone had it, it would have been Chris.
Mm.
And the thing was, when I was playing through the game for this book club, I was like, I know this game. It was like it's in my head. I knew what was going on. I knew what was coming up, and I was like, that's so weird that it's like it's literally a lost memory to me where I actually did play it because I didn't actually own it like until way later. It's like I remember buying Panzer Dragoon and like Panzer Dragoon Saga. I don't think I ever forget because that was just such an epic and huge game. But yeah, the first one is just a little bit lost in my memory. So yeah, weird one.
I mean, the bits I remember with real clarity were the intro scene. You know, the kind of the death of the original rider and that little bit of CG that they do, and the worms. And you were saying the same, like the level
The worms,
2
yeah.
worms. So
Yeah, level 2 WAMs.
but then I also look at the level 1, you know, above the sea and the green archways and stuff that you fly through, and that really rings a bell as well. So, don't know, maybe you got 2 levels, but anyway, this demo disc came out. I was very much aware of Panzer Dragoon, but there's an interesting thing, I guess, to admit to, which was that a lot was made. A lot was made of the graphics, and there was a lot of hype in the magazines saying how good it looks and how impressive it is. And at the time, at least, I remember thinking, oh, it looks a bit bland, looks a bit sparse.
Oh, really?
You know, just seeing that, because obviously the desert scene in a screenshot, you just don't really get a sense of it being graphically impressive. But I was wrong, because I mean,
right.
like even playing it now, they've done a beautiful job. I mean, it's
fantastic.
the
It's
sceneries,
so well done.
like the scenery's evocative. It's brilliantly done. There isn't a huge amount of scenery going on. You know, it's a bit more populated than, say, I don't know, a Starwing or something. You know, it's comparable rail shooter, different platform, I know, but you know, but it seems deliberate. The sparseness of the landscape, very much part of the atmosphere.
That's the thing. It's like the atmosphere of it is that kind of sparse, like nature of it all and stuff. Like the kind of like the isolation of being in these huge sprawling seas or forests and all this kind of stuff. And it's like you know, it's a bit different these days. I mean, we might touch on it later, I guess, but the remake that they did on I was playing it on the PS4, but it came out on the Switch and all that sort of stuff. But because you can see everything, it's got a real different feel about it, you know, because it's like you can see way off into the distance and you don't feel like as isolated and on your own, like kind of, you know, creeping across this landscape and not really knowing what's coming and that. And that was part of the drama of it all, I think.
I think the on your own bit is deliberate and a huge part of it. The sparseness there's a few things in that first level. The music is just beautiful. Like that was really underplayed at the time as well, by the way. I think the music in the review I read, I think either Mean Machines or Sega Mag, it got something like 88 or something, and I was like, this is like a full orchestral score. It's really grand and beautiful. But anyway, that first level, that beautiful music as you fly into the desert and you're like, you know, you are on your own. It's also weird. You can you feel like the strangeness of the landscape just as much as the rider would be feeling it. It works brilliantly, and but I feel like the graphics were deliberately done sparsely. They could have put more in. They probably could have stretched it a bit further. But I thought it was beautiful, and obviously when you get later on in some of the episodes, you know, what was it, level 4? You know, when you're doing the kind of tunnel system, zooming around, I guess underground. And I know it's on rails. I know it's pre-programmed, and I know like you have limited control over where you go, but it's really smooth and it's really like fast and effective.
The way it weaves and stuff, it's like really cool. Yeah, actually, you know what? The rider, I did actually look up a bit of the story, because in America, apparently they didn't actually give him the name or something. I'm not really sure, but like he's called Kyle Fluge or something. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. It's like Keil Fluge, Fluge.
Sorry, can I just say, you know what you sound like? You sound like a teacher on the first day of school, like welcoming in the new kids to the class. Like, Dibs, hello, what's this? Kyle Fluge?
Throw that teacher a curveball there with that one. But...
Anyway, sorry. Go on.
But actually, you know, should I just touch on the story actually quickly, just to give an overview?
Yeah, because it's such a part of it. We need to. Definitely
if I can, you can lend me your ears for about 20 seconds. I wrote down a little thing. So basically, you play as Kyle Fluge, who, after being attacked by 2 monsters, finds refuge in a cave which contains an ancient complex and a host of old technology from a bygone era. He's attacked by another creature, which is then crushed by the collapsing cave as Kyle witnesses 2 dragons in combat. The rider of the blue dragon is killed while the black dragon takes flight. The blue dragon swoops down to Kyle and makes a psychic connection, letting him know the black dragon must not reach the mysterious black tower that has appeared, and that an evil empire who rules the land has an unhealthy interest in. And so basically that's where you join the story, ready to mess things up. But basically what it is obviously he's got to put right what once went wrong. I think it's the thing, isn't it? That's what it's all about.
Anytime you can chew on that in, it's worth doing.
Oh yeah,
I love
I
that
think
wording
that's
of
going to be a thing.
I love the word in the an unhealthy interest in that. It sounds like he's some kind of
Yeah.
perv for the mountain. He's like
Well, who knows what's in the tower?
rubbing his knees. Oh, a little bit of mountain. But I mean, the story's brilliantly told, and we were saying just before that the way the story's told, because there's bits of speech, there's bits of in the cinematics you get a little bit of speech, but it is for the most part like a silent movie. It is told through the visuals, and we were saying that really draws on the style of this fella Moebius.
Yes.
Let's just call him Moebius for the whole thing, because I'm sure that's how it's. But I did know, but he is French, and I imagine it's probably pronounced Moebius.
It sounds like a bunch of Arsenal players. So this first one's not Jean, Henri, Gaston, Beauty and the Beast, I guess. Gerard. I don't know how to spell it, but how to pronounce it. I mean, but yeah, that's his real name. But yeah,
that whole thing's his full name. That all of that.
Four names. That's probably why he goes by Moebius or something, I guess.
Monsieur, vous n'avez pas besoin de nom c'est long. Sorry, went off. It's all the French. Just got me going.
Sounds awesome.
But he was basically the story goes that your man Yukio Futatsugi, just get that in early, who's like our young developer who led the project and directed it. More on him later. But he was obviously enamored of Moebius's work, and as I'm sure a lot of people were at the time, because it was a big deal and beautiful. It's still beautiful, by the way. And he just sort of basically piped up to Sega going, let's get him involved. And they were like, okay. Sort of dragged him in. But the guy was huge. But I mean, we said before, I think he's done work on the game, and he's produced like materials that are used in the promo materials and in the game artwork and with it. But the actual design of the game, the creatures, the dragons, the main character, that look of the fella with his big kind of deerstalker type helmet thing on, and all of that could be really taken out of this Arzach comic strip. It's almost it's not just an echo. It feels like it kind of belongs to that strip, and so I'm interested to know how engaged, involved he was, because it feels like he was integral, but when you read about it, it was more kind of let's get him in to do a bit of the drawings. But
well, if you read the kind of overview of Arzach, and I haven't read it, but basically the first thing I read was it's about a silent warrior who rides a pterodactyl-like creature through desolate landscapes. So that's basically how you describe Panzer Dragoon, really. That's to some degree. So yeah, definitely the influence is in there. But yeah, no, and actually, like what we were just talking as well before, and I'm going to pronounce this badly, but Hayao Miyazaki, Studio Ghibli. So he did Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. And that actually was a big influence on it as well. And we were talking about that in our Elysia Dragoon episode, and we had like artwork, and actually I can see the connection, like the kind of weird shell-like designs that are on a lot of the enemies, and like even like the dragon's head and all that sort of stuff, the armor and things like that. I mean, it looks very similar to all that, but that was another influence. But I mean, basically Moebius he's the main guy, isn't he, who they drew it all from.
There is a real thread there. Those sort of massive beasts, armor plated beasts, the kind of the look and size and feel of the world that they're in. And I don't know, it's you get a similar I won't draw any direct links here, but it was a similar story on Elysia Dragoon, wasn't it? They brought in that guy Nats, and they helped to design the game visuals, and it ended up being that they got into the design of the story, and the visuals spilled over into the way it played and who she was, Elysia, and all that. And I just sense that's part of this here. When they first did the pitch, when your man Futatsugi-san first did his pitch to the directors at Sega, and he went in with these storyboards, presumably at that point Moebius hadn't been on board, but when you look at them, they're so similar to the finished product and similar to Arzach that he must have
Right.
already had in his head, I love that world. That is the kind of thing we want to create here. And then subsequently brought Moebius in and either sort of built on that or just or the fella just turned up and went, looks a little bit familiar, guys.
Right, yeah. I think I've seen this before somewhere. Actually, you know, one of the things actually I saw that I thought was interesting was that Moebius actually contributed storyboards for Alien, Tron, The Fifth Element, and The Abyss apparently as well, which was quite interesting. I'd never heard that before. I was just reading about it earlier, and I was like, oh wow, that's cool. I mean, that's a decent catalogue of stuff to be involved in.
Yeah. And you can see that real thread through all of those, and Panzer, which is the otherworldliness of them. You know, Alien with its Geiger influences, but then also the backdrops and scenery. Obviously completely otherworld, it being an alien thing. The Abyss with its, you know, again, complete otherworld plot, even though a lot of it is not this sort of style. Obviously you can see that you need someone with the imagination and creativity to just completely transplant themselves to make something like that work. And you could see why they dragged him in, and for this it worked brilliantly, because you do look at it and say, they have actually made quite a lot with not a lot on screen, because it's so stylized and it's so brilliantly done. And I think, was it you that was saying to me, but I definitely read or heard somewhere that they designed the enemy characters in such a way that they were easy to render in polygons. You know, the shape of them was like, they made their lives easier. Or that it was a happy coincidence that the style that they'd chosen, you know, but it was all wrapped up together, saying, because we've got the freedom to create what we want, we can also work around the Saturn's kind of architecture a little bit more freely. So,
I read that, I don't remember what we talked about, but I did read that what they wanted the enemies to be is very recognizable, which enemy they are at a glance. And I guess the simplicity kind of like might lend itself to that. Because I suppose you want to know exactly what you're kind of going for with the attack patterns and the way you're dealing with them and things like that. And actually just thinking back now, it's like, you know, I guess, like, you know, when you see that particular kind of enemy coming towards you, you know what you're going to be doing to deal with it and stuff. And it does kind of help the gameplay, I think.
Or, as I said to you yesterday, in my case, not knowing what you're going to do with it, because I spent hours and hours trying to lock onto things that wouldn't lock on and blast things that probably needed to be locked on. It's worth taking a little sidestep into the actual gameplay then, because we obviously not mentioned it so far, but you know, it's an on-rail shooter. It is it is in the kind of, you'd say, space area mold, because it's like looking forwards, like you're facing into the enemies and following a set path. But of course, it feels very different from that, because one, you've got the ability to pan round and look in four directions.
Full 360,
which is not a gimmick. They use it throughout the game in the gameplay to give the other dimensions, give it challenge, because the enemies come at you from all over. You have to use your radar to see where the enemies are.
Yeah, keep an eye on that for those little dots and stuff. Yeah.
And some of the way they use that in the fight scenes with the bosses is fantastic. You know, when you're what's it? I think it's end of first level, isn't it? Where you're fighting that massive airship and kind of, it's sort of flying around you. You're flying through it.
You go through it,
And then is it second level where you're in the desert and the big like bad guy dragon is sort of coming at you, and he keeps kind of swooping around and taking up different positions. And so it's not a gimmick, it's used. And so
totally,
although it's an on-rail shooter, the dimensions are very much part of the game as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I mean, it really kind of gave it a different edge, didn't it? Because there was, I mean, like you were saying, like play like Star Fox or something like that before it, and it was like, you know, there was nothing like that. It was always what was in front of you for the most part and stuff, and it's like just being aware of your full surroundings was just like an additional element that kind of, was quite unique at the time. I think I can't really think of much else that was like it.
I mean, I'm tempted to say or since, because in a way, even as shooters have progressed, you don't necessarily, obviously into first person shooters and various like ships you fly around in something like Halo, you obviously do use the full 360, but in terms of rail shooters, when you're playing Res, do you look around yourself in that? I'm trying to think, because obviously
I haven't played it that much. I mean, I thought that was all kind of in front of you, wasn't it?
yeah, that's how I remember it.
I did play it on VR once, made me feel very sick.
I actually really want to play that on VR because like it will make me feel sick as well. I've played two games in VR and genuinely had to take the headset off because I was about to die. Have you played that? What's that Yu Suzuki game? Or Air Twister? Is that what?
Oh yeah.
And that obviously is an interesting hybrid in a way, because you have the Yu Suzuki's history with Space Harrier and that part of the on-rail shooter, but then it like stylistically and gameplay, it feels a lot more Panzer Dragoon like, because you're flying on a massive bird, aren't you? I think is it right, massive, like a seagull or something.
I can't even remember right now. Actually, I mean, I had it on my phone, I think. But I think they did it on the PS4, didn't they? As well, you can get like a physical copy. I really should get that.
Yeah, snap that up.
Yeah.
But I think the point being that the gameplay is an on-rail shooter, and your attack options are pretty limited. You have like a homing like laser device which you can lock on, and you have a blaster. The blaster feels very Space Harrier like. The lock on doesn't feel anything like that. It does. I would tempted to say it feels like an Afterburner or a G-Lock thing, but it doesn't really, because, well, come back to it in a sec, but because of the way it performs. But the point being, that on paper sounds simplistic, but it really doesn't feel simplistic to play. It feels like there's so much more depth.
I felt like I was so on my guard the whole time. It was like I didn't have time for it, to be think like musing on anything really, I suppose. I found it way harder than I remember actually. It was I was using my continues up and stuff. And I was like, man, I do not remember it being this up. I actually wonder if my tapping with my thumb is like, because I'm knocking on a bit. Yeah,
you're creaking.
Because I had to develop a whole new way of holding the Saturn pad, where I had my hand like that. I was trying to do the D-pad there, that there, and then this hand was the tapping, and then I was using that finger, I think it was, to do the other shoulder button. So I was just like holding this thing real weird like the whole time. I kind of got used to it, but like I definitely did not used to play it that way. But my fingers just do not work in the same way anymore.
Watching you do that pad demo there is the exact reason that I don't allow people to download and edit our YouTube videos, because that could be manipulated. That was so odd.
Yeah, don't let that happen.
But that, you take, for example, that level 4, which we mentioned earlier, where you're in a series of tunnels, you're flying left and right, down and up, and it's swooping around. That is completely on rails, and you don't decide where you're going, but it couldn't matter less. It is perfect that the direction is being controlled. It is almost as though you're being swept along by, call it what you like, fate, physics, whatever, and you're just trying to do your best to stay up with all the stuff that's happening to you. And that's so in keeping with what they were trying to do plot wise and game wise, and it looks beautiful. I know it's very simple because it's just sort of 4 boxy walls around you and stuff, but who cares? It looks great and it works so brilliantly. It's just
it really did. No, I mean, it was that was great fun. I just loved the kind of like the up and the down, and then going around all the different tunnels and things like that. It just felt great and real fun, and just like I mean, I got a bit frustrated one of the times where you get to the first doors that open like that, and there's these enemies behind it, and they shoot you straight away. And I had in my head, like, every time, like, right, when you get to that first door, remember that they're there, and I just did not remember at all. Every single time I got shot, I was like, I can't believe they got me again. What is wrong with my brain? It's just, oh man.
Well, I'm glad you
Yeah,
mentioned those.
different worlds.
They were ever so slightly cheap, those ones, because they got me every time as well. But I'm glad they got you too.
Oh, right.
So,
Yeah.
well,
I just had to suck it up and just be like, oh.
I mean, we mentioned in the graphics about Moebius, and this was like a big leap where your man Futatsugi rocked up to Sega. He's in charge of this project, and he basically says, "I know, let's go out and get one of the biggest names in like manga, comic design, or whatever to." Say manga because he is tied up in that scene, but obviously he's French. Anyway, but he's, let's get one of the biggest names to come in. But it wasn't the only big name he went after, because he also rocked up with the idea to get this Yoshitaka Azuma involved, who it's who first off did an absolutely amazing job, because this soundtrack just, I don't remember how good this was. I honestly don't, and it was just beautiful. I was transported. I was sat there first time I played this. It was the dead of night. I was sat in this apartment room on holiday in France, and I fired it up, not really remembering how it feels, and that music came in. And I was just like, wow. But this guy is not. He has done a few other games, but he's not a games designer. He's not a sound programmer. He's a full-on avant-garde progressive rock synth musician that's produced albums all through the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, I saw he'd done a bunch of TV shows and stuff as well.
Yeah. And I mean, listening to it, the guy, his sound is kind of it's a big early 80s synth sound, like a kind of Pink Floyd, well, the Wall, Wish You Were Here kind of era of bigness. See, my sort of music reviewer chops completely ran out of words there. But it's the point being,
wall of sound or something.
It's huge, and we'll get into this in a minute. But this was a new developer, a new team, working on a new system at the start of its life, essentially with a concept which was new and I wouldn't say untested, but it certainly was something that no one knew if it would work. And yet here they are going, let's also get this this big name synth musician coming into it. I mean, how many gambles on top of gambles were they taking?
Well, it worked though. It's the gamble that paid off, because he knocked it out of the park, didn't he? And I thought it was really interesting, like we were saying earlier, because it's on rails, in terms of the timing of where you are in the game. He knew exactly what piece of music would be playing at each kind of point, basically, and he kind of built and emphasized certain things for dramatic effect and things like that. And I thought that was really cool, because like you're saying, he probably hasn't done anything like that before, so it's a new thing, but he nailed it first time by the look of it.
Real kind of they talked about doing what they do in Hollywood and doing the video first, or the film first, and then coming and scoring it afterwards. And it worked. It's that same idea of how they've taken the fact it's on rails and run with it and made it work for them. Same way that those levels where the controlled flight path is part of the fun, not a limitation. So the music is just made all the better by coming in and being so well timed with the on-screen action. It's just beautiful as well. Like I say though, in the reviews I read, it wasn't slated. They liked it, but it should have been way high 90s, this beautiful, fantastic score. Just don't know.
But you know what? I wonder if what I was saying earlier, there was a little bit of this involved. Is that there was so much hype of the arcade conversions. You know what I mean? It was the Daytona, the Virtua Fighter, and across the way on the PlayStation, Ridge Racer and all that stuff. There were so many eyes on these conversions, because those games have been in the arcade for a while, and it was right, what are they going to be like when they come home? And then it almost felt in my mind, I was just that's where my thinking was. I was just purely aiming for the arcade conversions, but I wonder if other people were as well. And then Like, because I kind of feel like I had a bad attitude about it. Like, I was coming to Panzer Dragoon as like not an afterthought, but like, right, I want the arcade conversions, and then I'll see what's going on with the rest of it. And I wonder if there was an element of that, perhaps. I don't know.
I think that's a huge thing. You can maybe chuck in the other side as well. It just seemed to be historically maybe stuck in a weird limbo, because what PlayStation was doing, here or a bit afterwards, was very kind of the dance, the techno, the wipeout, the ridge race. It was all very kind of just, I'd say, I was going to say cheesy. It's not all cheesy stuff. Some of it was really good music, but it was completely different ethos, completely different style. It was young and brash and loud, and this was sort of thoughtful and cinematic.
That's true.
And then you had Sega, who were doing arcade fun music, similarly big, but maybe just more playful. And this was earnest, it's quite almost serious, wasn't it? And it doesn't feel like that's where the mood was. But
that's a good point, actually. Your average club goer might have not been quite so impressed as by the orchestral brilliance of this compared to the soundtrack of like Wipeout or something. Perhaps, I don't know. Maybe. But then maybe it's something in that area.
Another one, I think, just where the timing's frustrating though, because I've read a few places, retrospectives looking back and saying how Panzer did CG intros and cutscenes years before they'd be such a big deal for Final Fantasy VII. And they weren't the only two games that did them. I'm not saying that, but the point being that this had that grand, big scale cinematic part to it that did become such a big selling point for Final Fantasy when that came out. And similarly, the music was so big and wonderful. It almost just feels, it was the kind of the wrong timing for that thing, because obviously later it worked.
Yeah, possibly.
Very
Actually, one thing
game,
that jumped out at me while I was watching the intro was that it was like 6 minutes long, the kind of FMV cutscene and stuff. And it was like, I was like, we had Mega CD and stuff like that, but I don't remember any kind of intro to a game being that long or kind of, that in depth really, and what it was trying to convey with this opening movie and stuff. It would have been like one of the first times we'd seen something like that. And that kind of jumped out at me while we were looking at it for this book.
It's just another big leap, actually, isn't it? When you think that they built this massive cinematic, and for such an early game, just astonishing, actually, when you look back at some of the things they did that would be big gambles at any point during the 90s, really, or sort of big undertakings, and yet they took it. There was a bit in an interview I read, I'm going to get the name wrong about who had the snippy quote, but it was something like, your man Futatsugi walked into this meeting to pitch to the devs, and I want to say Yu Suzuki was in the room, but it was certainly some name that we know, and it's some, a respected person at the time. And so he presents this, and apparently they all go, well, it's great, but this person, who I'm going to say was Yu Suzuki, but I'll correct myself in the little credits underneath. It apparently just said, well, it looks great if you can do it. And well,
setting the challenge,
gauntlet thrown, because he did. You see his plan, the stills and the mock-ups, the storyboards. His vision was pretty developed from early on, and he did deliver it. And that's maybe you have to give credit to Futatsugi as a director of the project, because that's the thing that I think we're talking about through all of this, is how cohesive it was, graphically, musically, storyboard, everything. So
I mean, and it was a big leap, wasn't it? Like compared to what we were playing on 16-bit, to then come to something like Panzer Dragoon. And actually, you know what? And this little memory I've got was actually about Panzer Dragoon's Vi. So this guy we used to know called Panel, he grew up obsessed with games, didn't he? He was into the NES and the Super Nintendo, and then he kind of like just cut off all games. And I remember he came round to Chris's house one time, and we were playing Panzer Dragoon's Vi, and he was looking at it, and he was I remember he made a comment like, wow, I take it games have moved on a bit. And like that kind of encapsulated that whole kind of feeling like that you got with Panzer Dragoon, because I mean, like, I know Panzer Dragoon's fire was like, you know, pushing it on again, but like, you know, it is similar to the original one, and has the same kind of effect and stuff. But yeah, that kind of, I always remember that little memory, because it really kind of, it's quite a statement really, isn't it? Like, you know, just that move from 16 to 32-bit and seeing this incredible stuff.
Yeah, it was. I mean, at the time, thought of very much as a statement of intent from the new world of games. But that is a great example of it, because it had a wow factor. I mean, Spy in that case, but similar kind of thing.
I mean, Spy was incredible.
Yeah, and I have to say, I always remember sort of feeling very much like, oh, I love Spy. It's a shame sort of Panzer Dragoon was like the original, just sort of wasn't quite as good. Playing it back now, I don't know where I got it. I genuinely was sucked completely into this and loved it.
Yeah, it's brilliant fun.
I have to give a proper bit of background then. We've mentioned him a few times, this Yukio Futatsugi, and the story behind the game, because it's really fascinating as a game itself, how it's developed, but it's also a really kind of like telling bit of history about Sega and the system at the time as well. So like, I know we've both sort of picked up on it, so just chuck in any that you've got, but I just had to tell this bit around the way he tells it. He basically fished around for jobs. I think he'd applied to Konami, he'd applied to Sega. I don't know if he'd also applied to Namco, but there were a few out there, and he very much tells it as Sega were the ones that gave me the job, and laughs about it, because that's kind of, so many of his peer group got chucked a job by Sega when others wouldn't touch him. He had a background in computer programming, but he was a newbie, and he came into Sega and kind of fiddled about on a couple of bits. I can't remember what the other game was he worked on for a bit. Something towards end of Mega Drive, I think it was. And then he pitched this idea as no games under his belt, no like real development experience, nothing in 3D, because no one in Sega in Home Division really had anything in 3D. And he pitched this idea, and it got greenlit. And he says at the time he felt, how looking back he thought about it, just how amazing it was that Sega would basically hand him a project, because that's what they did. They said, yeah, not only are we going to green light it, go and direct it. You set up a team, you 21, 22-year-old, whatever it was, set up a team, drag the people in, work out how you're going to do it. By the way, we don't have a dev kit, we don't even have a Saturn for you to work on, but just get going.
Oh yeah, I read that.
Just to kind of, just really telling, because you feel the same thing. We were talking about Sonic on the 8-bit recently, and it's kind of what they did with Yuzo Koshiro and Ancient. It basically just said, listen, do you want to have a go at that? Just
have a crack at it. I guess there's so many stories like that. Like, I mean, like that Pandemonium documentary about Virtua Cop, wasn't it? I mean, all those guys,
just all these young
ship
devs.
Them in, here go get cracking. It's like,
see what you
young
can do.
Guys who never made a game or something, and it's like, just hand them the reins. And
I thought the same.
For the most part, they excel.
You do wonder what their background was, because they describe themselves as having no game experience. But I mean, can you really just go into Sega and learn how to actually program on the job?
Right there on the job, yeah.
Amazing stuff.
I know. So I'm seriously winging it, but but we're still benefiting now. Like, what is it, 29, 30 years later or something? It's like, here we are talking about it.
I think that is the point I'm getting to, is that craziness, that willingness to take these huge punts, just seems to have yielded so much of their genius in games. Because Futatsugi talks about then going at Konami, and I think later he then worked at Microsoft, and saying they were very structured, and they'd have meetings, and you'd present your progress, and you'd talk about where you got to. And with Sega, it was just none of that.
I always loved that about Sega. Though. It's like, just throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. I mean, that's kind of like, probably was part of the undoing of them. But I just loved how like crazy they were. Like, you know, every 2 minutes it was like there's a new piece of hardware. It's like, you know, Mega CD1, Mega CD2, like multi-mega, like activator, VR headsets, like all this stuff. It was like just so exciting. Like that was always one of the things. I remember reading NMS, Nintendo Magazine
Yeah.
System, you know, when it's when the original Mean
Mhm,
Machine
mhm.
split in half, they had Mean Machine Sega and NMS because they got the official branding, didn't they, from Nintendo? But I just remember, and it's no offense to Nintendo, I just remember I was reading the Nintendo stuff. There was nothing going on. You know what I mean? It's like the news was like, oh, there's this game
Bland.
coming out and stuff. But Sega was like, oh, there's all these games coming out. There's this stuff going on in the arcade. There's this stuff that you're gonna stick onto your Mega Drive and all this stuff. It was like it was just crazy, and it felt like out of control or something. I don't even know, but it was like a wild ride. And it was just like, you know, yeah, they burned themselves out, and like Nintendo is still going in the hardware business, and Sega weren't. So maybe they were more sensible, but like, you know, it was that crazy like ride of being a Sega fan that it was exciting all the time. Like Sega magazines were full of exciting stuff,
Yeah,
and like
yeah.
that's what I loved about it.
And we didn't imagine it. I guess that's the point. It's like this was the more stories you read about Sega and the game development at the time, that was who they were. This isn't our
Yeah.
construction from the outside. This really does feel like the company that they were, and for good and ill, because you know you said, you know, they burn themselves out, and you follow Futetsugi's story forwards, and that is how it played out. Because so he had a team of 15 for Panzer Dragoon, and I think
Yeah.
they then pretty much all went on to Zwei. Some others came aboard, and then for Saga, most of them stayed, but the team became 40, 50-ish, I think he said it was.
Right.
And I read 4 interviews about Saga and different devs, but all saying the same thing. You can hear the pain and tiredness in their voices, the way they're talking about how hard that project was. And you can kind of see this trajectory of like new and exciting, just get on with it. It's like fueled by adrenaline, like create the project, get it done, crunch, crunch, crunch. But then they get bigger, the demands are greater, and they do burn out. And this team quit, and Team Andromeda.
That was it, basically. Yeah,
that was it. They
a bunch of them went to Smilebit, didn't they? Who did those, like a bunch of those games, the early Sega games that came on Xbox, like Gun Valkyrie and things like that. I can't remember them all, but like it was it was a wild ride. But I think they didn't do Panzer Dragoon Auto, did they? Like,
No.
well, maybe they actually did. Smilebit work on that?
There are some names that cross over, but our fella didn't work on Auto, if I remember it rightly.
Right.
He'd gone on, because he went Konami, Microsoft, and then he's created this company, Grounding, which I think is now his own development company. But that does seem to be the story. They threw everything at everything, and that can only last so long. But yeah, what a crazy ride, and what genius they come up with. Yeah, what a ride. I did think, I can say as well, I think we're going to have some kind of klaxon for the moment which happens in every one of our videos where we go, no offense to, and it's like, this time it was Nintendo. I think last time it was Namco.
Yeah. Basically, all the people who we grew up with as enemy.
Because it's like, you know, there's loads of good games out there. But
Yeah,
no disrespect to everyone who's not Sega.
Yeah.
But you're not Sega.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you're not Sega, you're not cutting it. But around these parts, no, I'm kidding.
Well, I think obviously we then followed the progression of the Panzer series through, and it is great to see they pushed it on and they did take it further. You know, the Panzer Dragoon was the seed of it. That wasn't the sequel or this was the original. They started off that strong and then still managed to progress it through the series is quite incredible. And it shows how strong the vision was at the start, doesn't it? Because the thread is consistent, the plot's consistent, the styling, the characters, just it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's bang on.
You mentioned earlier though about how hard it was. I said to you, like, inadvertently, because I just sort of played what was in front of me, but I did start on easy mode. You know, I just pressed whatever came up on the option screen. And I was thinking, man, I'm nailing this. I'm obviously some kind of like rail shooter pro because geez, I've got 11 continues. I haven't even died. I'm nailing it. And then I got to
the end of level 4.
It gets to the end of level 4 and it's like, it's essentially, you can almost hear them smirking behind the screen going, yeah, well done. Completed easy mode.
Yeah.
Now go and play the proper game.
Yeah. Play it like a big boy now. And I do think I might have played it on the remake and then kind of like, you know, just kind of getting used to it, because when I played the remake it feels really different, like the controls and stuff like that. I just don't enjoy it quite as much as the Saturn one, but like I think I do remember getting to the end of level 4 and I think they do the same thing in the remake. So yeah,
but it's a huge jump as well. I don't think so. I played through on normal a fair few times and I could feel myself getting better. There was quite a satisfying progression to it because you learn where the enemies are coming in. You start to learn a bit of their movement and patterns and stuff, and you gradually, your health bar takes less of a battering, and it's great. But it's a huge leap. You know, that easy mode is really a
step up.
It's a training ground, isn't it? It's just to get
right.
used to the controls. It's not the game at all, really. And when you play it, yeah, it's hard. But actually, I say about patterns, one of the things that they mentioned in the dev is, unlike most rail shooters like your Space Harriers or even your sort of like top scrolling shmups and stuff, which was the other influences on them, I think it's fair to say. They mentioned a few sort of Capcom and Taito games from the 80s and stuff. There aren't simple patterns. You know, the enemies have a character depending who they are. They do move the same each time you encounter them, but they're very different from each other. You know, like obviously there's some that sort of slither along the floor, there are others that fly around. Things that like are on the walls and then jump at you like face huggers and from aliens and stuff. It's great because it really, there is no single attack pattern you can follow which is going to get you through every scene. You know, and that's such a part of the progression. It made it hard.
Yeah, it makes it feel natural every time.
Yeah, makes it tricky, makes it hard. The first few playthroughs, everything's just changing all the time and they're coming at you from different directions and stuff.
Sure.
But then, yeah, you build and you progress. It's excellent.
Actually, one thing I was going to mention that I read about, and I didn't play it yet, but there's actually a secret level, like a kind of level 0 or something like that, because there's like, what is there, like 6 main stages, and then the 7th level is like basically the end boss.
Just a boss battle, isn't it?
Yeah. So, but there's a level 0, I think. I can't remember if it's called that, but like basically it's some kind of, I think it's like a score attack kind of thing. You're kind of like going across the empty sea kind of thing, and it's just like all these enemies coming at you, and you got like a score at the top there. I didn't play it. I watched the video. And I think you have to put in like a cheat to get it, but I thought that was pretty interesting.
I did play it, and I stumbled across it last night, just randomly, because I wanted to get to that level 7 before we talked today. So I did put the cheat code in, hands in the air, because I just wasn't getting there in time, and obviously found the one for level 0, and I was like, what's that? Like, I wonder if that's, I initially thought, I wonder if that just plays you the intro or something, and why would that be a cheat?
Right. Yeah.
But it's just like you describe it. It feels very it actually feels very Afterburner-y. It doesn't really feel Space Harrier-y. It feels Afterburner-y, but is, because you get that effect of them like flying all around you. It's do you know what it weirdly is a bit like? It's a bit like Space Invaders as well. You know, it's just it's quite tactical, trying to line up where you need to aim all your fire. It's quite different. It feels quite different, but it was quite good.
I'll have to give it a go.
Good target practice. Good.
Could get your eye in and stuff. I bet a good little warm up thing, maybe. I don't know.
There's actually quite a few cheats in there. There's like you can mix up your weapons, so you can change like I think it's the colours, and I think the power of the charge up laser, the lock-on laser, I say. you can do a
Yeah, I
space
saw
harrier
there's-
mode. Do you see that? It's
Yeah.
like,
Oh, okay.
which is basically the dragon model disappears, and so your character's just sort of floating in midair.
Oh yeah, I've seen
Yeah.
him flying. Yeah, I've seen. I remember that from the magazines, like in the old tips pages and stuff.
Yeah, I mean it's quite cool. It's like, and there's also it's called a wizard mode, which is it's like 1.5.
Well, like invincibility or something. Or...
I think there's an invincibility, but the wizard mode is
Oh,
just,
this is different.
it just
right.
speeds it up, and it's really
Oh,
weird.
okay.
But you
Ah.
know, we were saying obviously the music's in sync. The music speeds up as well, which makes it sound a bit odd.
Oh,
But,
does it? Oh,
it's-
interesting.
but I just thought it was quite interesting because it shows that it could move at that pace. Because I didn't notice any like extra like pop-in or graphical glitches or anything.
Yeah.
It just went faster, and it's like,
Yeah.
this is so you could actually have pushed this. And
Yeah. Well, I suppose they wanted to catch that graceful, like kind of motion of the dragon, didn't they? And I suppose the pace kind
Yeah.
of is all part of it. I suppose.
well, exactly. It goes back to what we were saying before. It doesn't feel like they didn't pick the sparseness and the pace of gameplay because they were constrained by what the Saturn could do. They picked it because it works. Because here's the wizard mode, and it seems it's
Yeah.
faster and it's still working.
Right. Right.
No,
Yeah. So
really-
actually, I was going to say, like, speaking of like, so the sparseness we were talking about it earlier. Like, did you play the remake at all? Or did you give it? Have you had a go of it? or-
no, I haven't. You'll have to tell us more about it. 'Cause
Oh, okay.
it surprisingly
Yeah, no,
held
I
its
mean-
value quite a lot. Actually, I was hoping when we played this to pick it up for a song, but it's still
Yeah.
going at about 25-30 quid, I think. So
Yeah, I mean, every now and then, I suppose you got to look out for the deals nowadays
Mm.
because every now and then it does get right pretty low. But yeah, because I picked it up on, I've got it on the Switch and the PS4, and like, I mean, like, I do really enjoy it, but it's like the gameplay feels a little bit different. I mean, I remember when it launched, it got kind of quite trashed actually because it was
yeah, I read a few
rushed
things saying
out.
it was like six out of
Yeah.
10, 7 out of 10 sort of scores.
Yeah, because it had a lot of problems. I think it was like, what was it? Like, the frame rate, and it was jerky, and there was shooting problems, and I think the reticle was like kind of different than what people wanted or something.
I read
like,
something about the reticle like appears in front of the player or something, so it like ruins
Yeah,
the
I can't really
impression.
remember. I don't even remember if I played it at the time before it had been patched, but then
Mm.
this patch came out and they basically fixed everything. Like, I mean, I saw a lot of comments online, people saying like, you've literally like nailed it across the board, like all the problems that it has, it's all like, that's a thing of the past now, and this is the game
Yeah,
as it should have been. And yeah, I do enjoy it, but like, I don't know if you watched any videos or whatever, but like it is one of the things that I see people say a lot, that the kind of atmosphere is very different now because it's very, you're going across the sea and there's kind of stuff everywhere, and you see way off into the distance and everything, and you kind of do follow the same kind of pattern and the route through the level and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it just gives a real different feel about it all. And I mean, the difference in the gameplay is like, I mean, I do still prefer the Saturn one. It just feels like a lot nicer. I mean, it's smooth on the new machines and stuff, but the gameplay of the Saturn one is just spot on for me. And like, I was really kind of longing for it to play more like the Saturn when I was playing it. So yeah, but it's good though. I like it. I like seeing kind of all the design and everything like rendered in real nice, clear, crisp detail and things like that. It's pretty nice looking, and I know it's probably wasted on a lot of people because I don't know how many people like would have played it who would have played the Saturn original and stuff like that and had that in mind. But it's worth a go. It's worth a go. I definitely
I'd like to play it.
recommend
Same, I think that appealed to me would be seeing these beautiful visuals and the ideas come into high fidelity and like just be better presented. But same. I don't think the smoothness of the gameplay or the visuals on Saturn was really a struggle, and so
No.
not like
I mean, the Saturn one's where it's at basically, and this is a nice thing to give a little crack, but it's the main event is still the Saturn one.
And it was nice it happened, I suppose, just to keep the IP alive. I'm always
I mean, I
in
never
favour of
thought it
people
would.
having another go at stuff because just it wakes it back up, and
Yeah,
Obviously,
I
you want
mean,
to
like
do a good
Panzer
job, but
Dragoon Auto was so long ago. I mean, it was like really early 2000s, wasn't it?
yeah, because so I'm just sort of trying to piece together the dates in my head because I
Yeah, I
never
can't
had
quite
it on
remember.
the Xbox like back in the day because like, you remember it was like my brother's machine and I just kind of played
Yeah,
what he played. Um,
yeah.
but it was all in the initial flurry, really, wasn't it? And
Yeah, I remember I bought it. I bought 3 games at the same time. I bought Panzer Dragoon Auto, Toe Jam and L3, and Dead or Alive Beach Volleyball, which I put on the bottom of the stack when I took it to the desk to hide my shame. There's no shame now. That game's awesome. I don't care. I
yeah,
don't care what anyone says.
it's true actually that series does get the respect now that it deserves. It's sort of almost distracted, I should say, from it back in the day because of its
Yeah,
other attributes.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, well, I suppose you could take it to our like classic question: would you play it today? You know,
Yeah, I would. I mean, you know what I would say actually is that I would, if I was putting a Panzer Dragoon on, like out of the first two, because obviously like the Panzer Dragoon Saga is like, you want to play an RPG, like not this kind of shooter game, I guess. But like I would put on Zwei over the first one, but I wouldn't be upset if I ended up having a long stint with the first one still. So yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it.
yeah.
So what about you?
Well, maybe the same, but it's weird in a way, just because I was quite happy just to be in the world because the
Yeah,
music was so beautiful. I know, don't want to
yeah,
take it just to the music, but that was really the thing that stuck with me from playing this. The gameplay was great. I thought the graphics were really good. That everything's
yeah,
great, but the music I just thought was so wonderful. And
yeah,
for me, it's nice going back into the world. So I think I'll happily fire it up just to sort of
yeah,
be in that, have a good time blasting away, but just sort of have the experience. But
yeah.
do you know, I intended to, as part of this week's gaming escapades, like go back and play Spy, and I haven't done it, so I will do it after this because, yeah, said earlier, back in the day, it was a little bit, that was the shiny new thing, and the original Panzer
Yeah.
quickly got forgotten.
Mm.
And I wonder, I mean, if I
Yeah.
still feel like Spy is as much better now as I did back then, I'm in for
Yeah,
a treat.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, I'd be interested to give it a go as well because of, I mean, I do remember like using Spy as kind of like a showpiece. Like if I took my Saturn around to someone's house, because everyone slated the Saturn, but hardly any of them played it. And then I would like take a bunch of games and be like, right, this is what it's all about and stuff. And one of the first games I would put on would be Spy, and they'd be like, oh, yeah, that's really good, isn't it?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, no, I'd be interested now with to play it with fresh eyes, especially just coming off of Panzer Dragoon 1. So yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to give it a go. However, that is not the game we're going to be playing for Book Club. Maybe it'll get a little go on the side, but it's not going to be our focus because we are going to go for something. Actually, I was going to say something completely different. We may find a few links between them because what we're going to play is.
It's gonna be Res on the Dreamcast /PS2 / whatever version we can get our hands on, but Res is the game. So
Slash kind of everything now, I suppose, isn't it? It's on a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah, so
it is. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, a great one to move to because I think when we started out, we were very much talking about it's a good reason to get stuff out of my cupboard and get it in the Dreamcast and start playing it. I actually now have the GDMU, so it's more a case of put the ROM on, but it's not quite.
But
as
you
romantic.
do have the disc version.
But I
don't
do
you?
have the disc version, yeah.
Yeah,
So
and it goes for a pretty penny, so you better wrap that thing up in cotton wool or something.
I'm glad you're coming through headphones because if the missus was hearing that, she'd be in there like a shot, selling my kit.
You be for it, yeah.
I don't care that Snatcher's worth 500 quid and I never play it. It's mine, goddammit.
Hey, no one touches them games.
No one snatches the Gillian seed.
Oh
Snatches.
no.
But I am very keen to play it for those reasons because it gets to play maybe at least once a year, a couple of times a year. Like I've dusted the old sucker off, like during a bit of rotation, and but it's just it's I don't know. It's one which I've never given a proper amount of time to because
me too.
it lends itself to being whacked in and having a quick play, and it's for the same reason maybe a bit too easy to only play for a little bit, and you know people rave about it, and I think it's high time. High time we gave it a bit of
It is high time. We get stuck into this bad boy. See what we reckon.
Well, it was good. It was good. Love playing that game. Very much looking forward to the next one. It's all going rather swimmingly, to be honest. I'm enjoying myself.
It is. I'm loving this.
Yeah. I don't know about everyone watching, listening, but we're getting to play some games, so I'm happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is a blast. So I suppose then, with all that being said, well, this has been great.
Oh, he's going. The headphones are off. He's doing the face. He's gone.